Ho ho ho, what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and today we are taking a look at 4 builds for you to consider for the upcoming December Endless Delve event. If you're new to the channel, you can of course like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about future video discussions just like this one. In today's discussion, we are going to be taking a look at 4 builds. We're going to take a look at the passive heat map for each of these archetypes, specifically in hardcore solo self-found Heist League. That's going to be essentially our default template for these particular builds that we are recommending. We're also going to include the top 2 delvers in hardcore solo self-found Heist League in order for you to be able to actually go and take a look at and see if the depths that these players are able to reach are similar to what you are aiming to hit. One quick word as a disclaimer, of course, even in hardcore solo self-found, even that is less restrictive than the upcoming Endless Delve event. Of course, there's even mapping, and there's all kinds of things that you can get from mapping that you won't be able to get in Delve. So my hope for all of these various POBs, which are of course linked down below in the video description, are to act as a template for you to consider as you go out choosing your build for the Endless Delve event. This is not going to be the typical build recommendation video where we simply say, here's a forum guide, here's a POB, go follow that to the T and you'll do great. Instead, this is going to be the Endless Delve event. No one has ever written a guide for this sort of thing before, and so it's going to be more restrictive than ever. And so these POBs are a template, not a copy and paste cookie cutter approach. Without any further ado, let's hop in and take a look at our 4 builds that we recommend for the upcoming Endless Delve event.
Death is my brother. I do not fear him.
The first build that I'd like to recommend for your consideration is playing an old school style summoner that features tons of defensive layers, the Herald of Agony Juggernaut. This particular build is incredibly tanky and can focus almost all of its passive points on either getting life, getting endurance charges, or getting various resistance sources. Basically, all of your damage for a Herald of Agony Juggernaut is going to come from the Herald of Agony Crawler. This means you don't need to worry about the sorts of weapons that you're getting, the sorts of weapons that you can craft, the sorts of jewelry that you're able to craft, looking for expensive things like critical hit chance or even critical multiplier. You're not looking for anything like that that's going to be difficult for you to craft or difficult for you to find in the endless darkness that is Delve. Instead, you're going to rely on your gem levels off of your Herald of Agony Crawler, and then for the most part, you're simply going to be a very, very tanky boy delving your way into the depths of the Azurite mines. At the time of recording, this is what the heat map for the passive trees for all of the various characters who were using Herald of Agony and had chosen Juggernaut as their ascendancy. You can see the tree is going to be heavily skewed towards the left-hand side of the tree, where you are mostly picking up either minion damage nodes up near the Templar tree, or you're picking up life and defensive nodes in and around the Juggernaut and Duelist tree. While there are a number of different creative ways to essentially bolster your ability to keep your Herald of Agony Crawler up and active longer, since we're going to be going into the Endless Delve, you're mostly going to want to use the tried and true method of using Cyclone in order to proc your hits, which will keep your Herald of Agony Crawler up and active for a longer period of time. One of the benefits of playing such a tanky character like a Juggernaut means you can get into the middle of packs and still survive. One word to the wise to players who have never played a Herald of Agony Juggernaut character in the past is to use claws. You're looking for claws that are going to give you as much life gain on hit as possible. This is going to be a massive form of sustain for yourself as you are cycloning and pursuing the cart, pushing it further and further down into the darkness. Since you're not needing to use your claws to actually pump out damage, it really doesn't matter what the rolls on your claws are. So you can actually find resistances and simply start throwing those onto your claws as you're crafting using essences or chaos spamming or even alteration spamming. You simply want to look for claws that are going to give you the most bang for your buck for life gain on hit. So in this particular scenario, you're looking for attack speed and life gain on hit in order to sustain yourself while you spin around in the midst of packs and your Herald of Agony Crawler takes out the enemies. In terms of options on the Juggernaut Ascendancy tree, it's pretty straightforward. You want to go for endurance charges, you want to go for the ability not to be stunned, and then you want your body armor to give you as much armor as possible. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the consensus of how to play Herald of Agony Juggernaut on the Ascendancy options. Quick word of reminder, you will not be able to change Ascendancy ascendancies during the Delve event. This is to prevent players from leveling up with one ascendancy and then quickly changing over to another ascendancy in order to get all kinds of different rewards. So you're not going to be swapping between Juggernaut to something else, and somebody else isn't going to be swapping from Berserker or Chieftain over to Juggernaut.
Simple job, I was told. Silence a big mouth, get a big payout.
Our second build that we're going to recommend today is a Caustic Arrow Trickster. Believe it or not, in hardcore solo Self-Found Heist, there's actually 127 characters that have made it onto the ladder playing Caustic Arrow Trickster, using things like defensive mechanics, like the Ghost Shrouds, and even using acrobatics and phase acrobatics in order to stay alive in hardcore. So this is a viable strategy, and these characters have gotten pretty far into the depths of the mine, including the top delver, who's at depth 332, and the second to top delver, who's at 307. So you can push pretty far down into the mines without dying. So if you're playing softcore, this is going to be, of course, an even better option for you, because you're not worried about that one time that all of your various layers of defenses doesn't work. The consensus among most players who are playing Caustic Arrow Trickster are basically to go for your Ghost Shrouds as your defensive layer, and then of course to get as much dot multi or damage over time multiplier as possible from your Ascendancy. And so that's pretty much the consensus when it comes to your Ascendancy options. When it comes to the basic passive tree, you're pretty much wanting to make sure that you go out of your way to get Atrophy. That's pretty much a no-brainer. That is the massive, massive chaos damage wheel that is available towards the top right of the entire passive tree. And then from there, Hunter's Gambit is also very, very strong for you, along with Method to Madness. While Method to Madness isn't quite as popular as Atrophy or Hunter's Gambit, it is nonetheless a very strong spot for you to be able to pick up some good damage with only a couple of passive points spent. For defensive layers, if you're looking to get an even bigger life pool, just in case all of your various dodge mechanics do fail and you do take damage, you can always travel over and pick up the Silent Life Wheel. It is a ways out of your way, so just be aware of that, but it is an option for you should you desire to pursue it. While you're leveling and looking for a 5 or a 6 link, generally players are prioritizing their support gems in the following way: Vicious Projectiles, Swift Affliction, then Void Manipulation, and then you've got a couple of choices here, either between Damage on Full Life or Conk Effect, or even potentially Arrow Nova or Mirage Archer, depending on the sort of coverage that you are looking for. While I typically like to use Mirage Archer while I'm mapping, just because as you're running around in maps, maybe there's a pack off to the side, etc., that you wouldn't normally be able to hit with your regular pathing as you're going through a map layout. Since we're going to be following the cart, and you realistically are only going to be damaging monsters that are inside your light radius or that you can see along the path, I would generally say that for this particular event, Mirage Archer as a quality of life feature is actually not going to be as strong as simply manually firing off your caustic arrows and taking down what you actually can see and what you actually can shoot, and going with that extra link for damage rather than for quality of life, especially since 6 links are going to be so rare. Of course, all of this is a moot point. If you get lucky and you get a 6 link, then go for it. Go for some extra quality of life. But for the rest of us that have got terrible luck and are probably going to be at level 80 using a 4 link, that's going to be me. Quality of life is going to be a luxury that we probably cannot afford.
Now they call me a criminal for defending my honor.
Our third build that we've got recommended for you here today is the Lacerate Gladiator. This is an incredibly strong character that does not require uniques and can scale very ridiculously well with rare items only. We all know that Delve spits out rare items, whether they're rare jewels or rare base type items, and we've got lots and lots of opportunity for us to simply scale up a very basic defensive tanky character that can also take out enemies as the cart is moving or as the cart is stationed at any of the encounters that we're hunting along the way. At this point, you might be saying, block Gladiator, Iron, but how deep does that actually go into the Delve? I'll tell you how deep it goes. The number 1 player has gotten it down to depth 502, and the number 2 player, again, in hardcore SSF, has gotten it down to 467. Now, I don't expect, because again, we don't have access to all of the different things that we would have access to via mapping, that you or I are going to replicate those numbers for this event. But nonetheless, the pattern that is laid out with a Lacerate Gladiator is going to be replicatable for us to get very, very deep and easily push down to depth 171 to that top level of monster level that we're looking to hunt inside Delve. On your Ascendancy, you're going to want to mostly go with these options. There are a little bit of debate about what you can change up with, but for the most part, this is what players are going for. Pain Forged, Versatile Combatant, Blood in the Eyes, and Gratuitous Violence. That is by far the most popular Ascendancy combination out of the 400 plus characters that are playing Lacerate Gladiator and are on the ladder for the hardcore solo self-found. About 10% of Lacerate Gladiators are choosing to go with Outmatch and Outlast, and about 24% of them are choosing to go with Arena Challenger. Those are the two most popular variants. But make no mistake about it, those 4 options that I just gave you, that is by far the most popular configuration. It's going to give you the most amount of block, and it's going to give you the most amount of damage for your bleeding that you're dealing with your Lacerate. Speaking of bleeding, you're going to want to pick up a whole bunch of different damage passives on the tree that are going to augment and amplify your bleeding damage, including you're going to want Aggressive Bastion for the combo if you're using a shield plus any other configuration, because it gives you a whole bunch of additional damage and defensive abilities while you're using a shield and while you're actually dealing damage. You're also going to want the Ailments combo that's available with Aggressive Bastion. It is incredibly strong if you're using a shield. If you're going dual wielding, then you're going to want to avoid that completely. Also, the Scion Life Wheel isn't very far away, so if you're looking to increase your life pool just across the board, that is an option for you. It may look like it's very far away from the rest of what you're going for, which is primarily the left side of the tree out of the Marauder tree, but that's, again, remember, this is just a heat map indicating what over 400 players are choosing. The Scion Life Wheel is not far away. If you're early on in your Delve experience and you're just finding that maybe you don't have enough block in order to mitigate the damage that's coming in, and you're just getting one shot and maybe you're failing a couple of different instances, go get the Scion Life Wheel. It's going to help you be able to push further and further into Delve. Also, you're going to want Crimson Dance and Bloodletting. Those are going to be 2 massive bonuses for you as you continue to scale your damage with ailments and the bleed that you're going to be dealing off of those Lacerate hits. Ideally, your links are going to be Fortify, Brutality, Melee Physical, Multi-Strike, and then some combination of either Deadly Ailments, Ruthless, or Chance to Bleed. You can really take your pick out of those and really tweak and hone your build depending on when and where you find your 5th and 6th link to be able to fit into your build. One of the coolest aspects of playing a block gladiator is that, of course, we don't have to scale up our spell block. Because of our ascendancy, we can make our spell block equal to our attack block, and that is a massive, massive boon since we don't have a bunch of uniques that would normally help us out with our spell block inside the Endless Delve event. This is going to be a very, very strong consideration if you're just looking to level up a character and hopefully win a couple of RNG drops from the mystery boxes at the end of the event. I highly recommend that you play Gladiator. It is a strong ascendancy that you can play without any dependence on uniques.
Ill fortune may have banished me to Rayclast, but I will live to hear them scream my name in the great arenas again.
Speaking of dependency on uniques, here is our 4th build that we are going to recommend, and this is really just a bonus build. Let's say, for instance, you're playing in the Endless Delve event and you get a Rapid Expansion or a Lord of Steel to drop for you. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but somebody out there is going to have it happen, and they are going to feel very, very good because they are going to then be able to play a Groundslam Champion. This particular build is incredibly strong and has got over 700 characters playing this form of character, a champion using Groundslam in hardcore solo self-found heist. The top delver using Groundslam Champion actually has 2 accounts that have gone really, really far down into the darkness of Delve. He's got one at 871 depth and another at 577, and then the second person to also get equally as strong or on the ladder is only at depth 370. So there is definitely a way to push Groundslam Champion way down into the darkness. Of course, that is going to be relatively unique dependent. So again, this is not going to be nearly as strong without uniques as our first 3 suggestions, as Herald of Agony Crawler, as Caustic Arrow Trickster, or as Lacerate Gladiator. But if you happen to get lucky and get a Rapid Expansion and a Lord of Steel, this is a top end defensive and offensive option for you to be able to push into the darkness of Delve. Ideally for your links, you're looking for Impale support on your Groundslam with Fist of War, Brutality, Pulverize, and then either Melee Physical or Close Combat. That's up to you and up to, of course, the RNG gods of Endless Delve with the various color links that you're going to get on a 5 or 6 link. Right now on the passive tree, it is incredibly vital for you to get Fortify effect. There is no other character other than a champion who has permanent Fortify who will benefit more from having Fortify effect on their character other than a champion. So go out of your way to get as much Fortify effect on the passive tree as you can. Because the damage for this combo is so strong, you are going to need potentially a really, really strong weapon. We don't have beast crafting. We don't have bench crafting. It's going to be really, really tough to make a top tier weapon with this. But let's say you're looking to use something that hits really, really big, but not necessarily really, really fast. If you want to play a two-hander inside the Delve Endless event, this is going to be a build for you. You can craft yourself a pretty decent two-hander that's going to give you a lot better damage per hit off of Groundslam than a lot of alternatives that you're going to be able to craft with weak and wimpy one-handers. Also, you'll note on the heat map that a lot of characters are going out of their way to pretty much pick up life, fortify effect, and that's really about it. Maybe a couple of jewel nodes here or there, but there's not a massive investment in offenses because Groundslam on its own, in combination with the absolutely brutal or amazing impale damage that you can get off of Champion, is ridiculously strong. So you don't have to feel like you've got to spend a whole bunch of passive points on damage as long as you've got yourself a decent weapon. This is going to be probably the most expensive or tough to build in the upcoming Endless Delve event, simply because of its required dependency on a couple of uniques. Please be warned, if you are going to try this without the uniques, that it is not going to look the same as what it would be in terms of strength and overall power for damage as if you had the uniques for rapid expansion in Lord of Steel. In terms of Ascendancy, you're going to want to go and pick up Fortify because permanent Fortify is incredibly, ridiculously strong for mitigating damage. And then on top of that, you're going to want to grab Master of Metal in order to make sure that your Impale is at its max efficiency. What better Ascendancy is there in the game to play a Impale-based damage character than Champion? Champion takes the cake. Master of Metal is ridiculously strong. In terms of your fourth Ascendancy option, 42% of players who are playing Groundslam Champion choose to go with First to Strike, Last to Fall, and 29% choose to go with Inspirational. So that's going to be a choice that's up to you, but those first three Ascendancies are basically locked into themselves for Impale effect and for Fortify effect and permanent Fortify. Well, thanks so much for joining us for today's discussion. I'd love to hear down below in the comments what build you're looking forward to playing in the upcoming Delve event. If you've got any questions, comments, or you'd like to take a look at any of the path of building of these top builders and the top POBs on the Hardcore Solo Self event, all of those links and POBs are down below in the video description for your benefit. As always, thanks for joining us, and I hope today is the day that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.